Looks like I could get that done in 30 seconds.
U.S. subprime mortgage crisis cost the world $7.7 trillion. The study was done by the U.S. Bank according to Wiggins, Martins, and Cost in 2007. The subprime mortgage definition is basically they hand out a mortgage to somebody that won't be able to pay it back in their annual fees or any. They won't be able to pay. It's a risky proposition to give out a subprime mortgage. That's according to Campbell, the subprime mortgage article in 2013. It's the definition of lending is a different kind of a deal these days. There's so many more regulations, and subprime mortgage has caused those new regulations. It can be good. Subprime mortgages can be good for people that aren't able to make their payments in the past, but are now able to make their payments, and it gets people, a chance to get a home or that kind of thing. But when you do it the way it was done in 06 and 07, it led to the fiasco that we had to deal with in our last Great Recession. Let's talk a little bit about the lending process, a little background information. The loan expectations in the old days is you'd go to a bank and ask, hey, I need a loan for the house, and they would own that loan and expect you to repay them. Well, with the new style of loans that they're doing now, they would take those mortgages and they'd sell those off and bundle them off into what they would call securities, and they would sell those to Wall Street then, to investors on Wall Street. Some of those loans would be called option arm loans, where you could option out for 5 years, pay no interest, and no principal. Or you could do stated income loans. You come in, you tell the bank you make $100,000, they do some math, they give you a loan based on it, that you wouldn't have to prove anything, just your stated income. Or you could do a 10-year only interest loan during this time, where they actually add to your principal and you don't pay anything, just interest on that. So those subprime mortgages got to be known as toxic assets, and when they would bundle those up as securities and sell them to Wall Street, it caused the housing market to bubble up, and people would pay more and more for homes that they necessarily weren't worth that, but in the market it was worth that. So let's talk about how that kind of led into what happened with the mortgage bubble bursting. Those securities were then sold to Wall Street and backed up by what they're called credit default swaps. Basically, companies like Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers would sell those bundles of mortgages to each other and insure them to each other, 100% insured, because they never thought that big companies like Bear or Lehman could go under. And that's according to the Kirk Inside the Meltdown and Frontline 2009 video on the video program on TV. So these credit default swaps were a type of insurance that basically they were selling these. It was like a hot potato. Whoever held it last was going to be most liable for this big, huge amount of mortgages. And Fannie and Freddie were the biggest companies, and they held about $5 trillion of these toxic assets. As soon as one of those big companies started to go under, it was started to be a set of dominoes effect because of the web that was connected, where everybody was plugged into Wall Street to owning some of these mortgages and backing up them through those credit default swaps. So now with the Dodd-Frank bill, and the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they've stopped credit default swaps between companies like that to ensure that a big disaster like our Great Recession wouldn't happen anymore. And interest rates are starting to climb now, according to Graham Mortgage Rates Now 2013 article. They're at 4%. They were at 3.25% just months ago. This is due to when these new things start to take act, people are now getting more confidence in the lending industry and the mortgages, and so they started to seem to work. The industry's had its ups and downs. Some that are in the industry now, including myself, are worried about possibly another crisis coming up here with the market getting driven up by just kind of fictitious data and that kind of thing. So the subprime basically led to our Great Recession. It caused $7.7 trillion worth of damage. It was the biggest financial collapse since the Great Depression, and it can be a tool used for good, but it can cause a market bubble, and then it will inevitably burst. Mortgages, aren't the most sexy thing to talk about, but we're all going to have one someday, so it's something just to know, and it's extremely relevant to all of us. A pan to the audience.
Ah, yes.